Thank you. Welcome back. Our next presentation is from Laura Meng. She'll be talking about when the baby app crashed, coding for chaos and parenthood. Laura is an Android developer turned solutions engineer who loves exploring how technology connects to real world problems. She writes code in multiple languages to bridge the gap between engineering and the market. Recently becoming a first-time parent inspired her to find creative ways to blend tech into everyday life. Let's all welcome Laura.
Thank you. So let me tell you about the night I lost trust in technology. It was 3 in the morning, and the house was dark, except my baby was fully awake, operating at full capacity. And if you're a parent, you know that you are running barely on fumes. If you're not a parent, imagine being hungover and having to do everything you have to do every day for about 2 years. And so I grabbed the thing that was standing between me and total chaos, I'm losing my mind, which was a baby app that I subscribed to. I opened the app, I logged the feeding, I put in the time, and then nothing. It just crashed. Again, this is 3 in the morning. I don't know what just happened. So I reopened the app, and the info wasn't there. Now, a regular person might say, oh, you just input it again. But again, I was running on fumes, so I had no idea what I just fed my baby, and all I wanted to know is when can I please go to sleep again. And so I decided to try to dupe this app and code it myself so it wouldn't happen again. My name is Laura. I am not a Python person. I just recently picked it up, mostly because of work, but I have heard great things about the community, and it is something that I want to keep learning. I spent about 9 years doing Android development, so think Java and Kotlin. And then because of the pandemic, kind of things changed, and I switched roles, and I am now a solutions engineer for Launch Darkly. And that just basically means I'm more businessy, but they still let us kind of code all of our code, and we decide in what language, which is nice. And so to that point, I said I'm going to write this in Python. Now, having a baby, this is not working. Hello? Okay, so let me just use my hand. Having a baby is basically like running a system you don't control. There are no predictable inputs. There's barely any documentation because every baby is different. There is constant alerts, and you can't roll back. You are just reacting when things happen. And it turns out software is kind of the same. Users are clicking things at random times, just like babies eat at random times. There's legacy code everywhere. Who owns it? I don't know. Do you understand it? I don't. APIs fail, connections drop, and then obviously someone deploys on a Friday, which is the same as trying something new at bedtime. Not good. So the goal in both parenting and production shouldn't be let's have things never break, but the goal should instead be when they break, can we recover gracefully? And so that shift from prevention to recovery is kind of what helped me get to what I wanted to do. And so with those came certain decisions, right? I already talked about Python. It's a muscle I want to keep developing. So that was a no-brainer right there. Then for the framework, I chose Streamlit. Again, I wasn't really familiar with any of them, but it seemed pretty easy for a beginner. You can stay in Python, and they have widgets to handle the UI. So you can go fairly easy and fast from just a few lines of code to a fully running app that's pretty beautiful. It's open source, and people contribute to these widgets. So you just put in what you want to do, and it'll handle the UI for you. You don't need to know CSS or HTML. You can deploy and host it with them as well. So I was like, easy, one-stop shop. And then launched Darkly, not because I needed enterprise grade feature management in my app for one person, but because I work there and I have seen what happens to teams when they bolt it on after the fact. It's really not a complicated thing to have from day one, and I was like, I might as well not run into issues later. And I will talk about what that means later, but for now, just know that I wanted the ability to change behavior at runtime and not have to redeploy constantly. So this is what my app looks like. I will try to do a live demo in a little bit. But it is specifically simple because I am tired. I can do two things and two things only. I can log sleep. It is preloaded with the current time. And then I have the option to enter the time for the beginning and the sleep if I need to. And then I can also log feedings. Again, preloaded with the current time, and I also have a set amount that I can change if I need to. Then whenever I log either of those, I have a summary at the top. It is just for the day. It resets every 24 hours. I don't have to think a lot, and that is basically my goal. But like I said, I actually built this very fast in a day. And so that got me thinking, if I'm doing this fast, what am I missing? Because when things are easy to build, they might as well be easy to break. And I did not want to land in forget everything land again. So if this crashes, then what? So here came my first architectural decision. In Streamlit, the way they recommend things, which again is not every use case, is to store everything in what they call session state. But like the name suggests, it's for the session. So even though I coded this very fast, if I refresh the page, it's gone. If my husband wanted to log it on his phone instead of my computer, he doesn't have that data. If it actually crashes, nothing there. And so I, with a little bit more work, just a little bit, added this to a JSON file. Same logic, I'm just appending it to the JSON file and then using that to re-render the UI. But files don't disappear when memory does. So if I do the write first, I don't care if the UI crashes, my file will still have that logic. It's not glamorous, obviously, it's an app just for me. But in real life, this could actually be a database. You would have it replicated somewhere. You would, for sure, probably have retry logic, and then you would add observability and monitoring that someone was talking about earlier. All the things that prevent the thing that you care about the most from failing, which in my case is logging. So if you think about what this decision is, really is you want to make the thing that renders the UI separate from the thing that guarantees the write. So I'm sitting pretty, I gained some confidence, I start using the app. This is great, like I said, pretty simple, I can do the things. So, you know, there's nothing more dangerous than a developer with some time in their hands. So I added more features. And so let's try this. I added a chart down here with just the last 5 days. Still pretty simple. It's kind of giving me some idea of whether or not my baby follows a pattern. Also a joke, no baby follows a pattern. And then maybe if I've spent 30 minutes rocking him to sleep and I'm losing my mind, but he finally goes to sleep. Let me log this sleep right here. Emoji rain. Mama deserves a little treat as well. And so right now we're doing good. But like I said, feature management came into play. What if this looks ridiculous on my phone? What if I don't care about the charts? So I put both behind feature flags. So what is a feature flag? Especially in Python, if we're doing like backend stuff, people tend to think feature flags are just for front end and UI and pretty stuff. But you can use a UI as just a conditional. You can use it to migrate databases. You can use it when you're changing schemas. You can use it when you're switching providers to make sure that the data is replicated before you fully switch over. They can mean more than just turn this thing on, is it pretty, do I want it? But it is what I'm using it for here. And so maybe this is not the real world scenario you would use. So let's try one. I'm going to maybe use an external API. So now it's not just code I write. I'm gonna say I want maybe an agent to optimize this data and maybe predict when my baby will potentially fall asleep again. Pretty easy to do here. This is also an API, but I'm just going to go to my flag dashboard. Like I said, I have my charts behind a flag. I have my emojis behind a flag. I'll talk about the last one in a second. But let's turn on this external dependency. So I'm turning it on. I save it. And like I said, I want to not redeploy. So if I go back to my code and hide this sleep, here it is. My UI without me refreshing or redeploying code. The code is already there. I'm just turning it on. I can now use this feature. So let's test it out. I'm gonna click this button. And this is now taking a really long time. Do I wanna do this at 2 in the morning? I'm already bored. Should I fall asleep? And it failed. So maybe not a good option for me to add. If this were production, you would be getting calls from angry customers, which worst case scenario, we don't want to lose the trust. You might be having an on-call and calling people, waking them up. Maybe they don't have babies and can sleep through the night. Not good either. I actually was talking to someone yesterday that was telling me about an incident where they were mentoring an intern and they had a production issue. And the intern's first instinct, which is a good beginner's instinct, was, hey, I found the code where this is broken. I'm gonna fix it. And if you've been around long enough, you know that that shouldn't be. I mean, it's a good thing to do, of course. But you also need to know, what is this bug? Is it affecting something else? If I fix this right now, what else is gonna break? What's dependent on this? There's all sorts of things about debugging and triaging that you, as an experienced developer, are thinking of even after when you find the issue in code. So our first thing should be to turn it off. So let's think back on those decisions I made earlier. All of these are behind a flag. Now I know that this is just that external API dependency, but maybe I don't because I'm on call and I don't own this code. So let me open this very helpful side nav, and I'll talk about the other stuff, but let's just focus on the top here. I have basically a toggle. I can go from fun mode, which is where I am right now, or I can go into survival mode. So if I hit this survival mode, look at that. I am back to just the basics. I can still log sleep, and I can still log feedings, which is what I need. The rest of the stuff are nice to have. So in an incident, you protect what matters the most. And so I did. So let's talk about what's actually going on here. I am not updating the UI. I am not just hiding that the chart, the emoji rain, and the button just when I turn that switch. I'm actually using something called context. And context is just a JSON object that gives me information on my user. For me, the only thing I care about is that mode attribute, but this could be region. It could be Canada versus someone in the US. It could be a mobile experience versus someone on web. You can add whatever you want. Again, just a JSON object. But what's important here is those flags, they're not just on, off. I'm actually passing the context to each flag. So then instead of them going, should the flag be on, it's actually context aware, and it's saying, should this be on for this particular user? And that is a little distinction, but it's an important one, because I can fully deploy code now, regardless of who's going to use it. So same code, same infrastructure, but different runtime behavior. And then that switch, it is just a type of flag, but it is a dependency on the others. So in a case of emergency, break this, that's what that was. I just turn everything off regardless of whether or not it is, debug later, triage later, figure it out while your production is not impacted, because that's when you get the calls, that's when people lose money. So this is now operational resilience on top of that data one we had earlier. So again, this is an app just for me, but the decisions should stay with you because we're developers, and if you build an MVP and then you have to scale it, you're not gonna say, cool, let's start from scratch. You've already spent all this time making those little decisions, and little decisions compound over time. So if you were to do this and then suddenly had users, or you suddenly were putting it on the App Store, or, I don't know, just had a bunch of people using it, you should still separate your UI from your data, because separation of concerns, I feel like this one's an obvious one. You would externalize feature control from day one, because you want to be able to change that behavior without redeploying. That takes time, that takes hours, and even mature teams struggle with finding the right cadence of doing that. And then your behavior. Your behavior should adapt to the situation, have that context. Because hard coding stuff, again, lands you in having to redeploy. And then know what's most important for you. For me, it's logging. To you, it could be payments. It could be rights. I don't know. Whatever's important for your product, protect that at all costs. So again, this hopefully shows that it's not over-engineering. It's just future-proofing. So let's go back to 3 in the morning. My issue was not that the app failed, is that it failed without a safety net. It failed without a way to recover. But that shouldn't have been the problem. Everything fails. And so parenting is kind of the same. You can't prevent every meltdown. You cannot hotfix a toddler, sadly, but you prepare. I literally have stashes of diapers in every room in my house. You build routines. You can pre-make bottles. You just prepare for failure, and hopefully you handle it gracefully. So because software is no different, example number 1, you should build systems this way, because when you do, you don't fear outages. You handle them. And maybe, just maybe, you get to sleep through the night.